Hey y'all, welcome to the Skookum Report. I got another great Bigfoot encounter story for you today. This one comes from the BFRO database. It's report 39181. This was a Class A sighting submitted by a deer hunter on January 21st, 2013. This deer hunter had his sighting in the Sierra Nevada mountains south of Markleyville. And this sighting happened in the fall. It was September of 2012, on September 23rd, in Alpine County, California. This gentleman says, "We went into the backcountry by way of Trailhead off of Highway 4, west of Markleyville, California." And he thinks the nearest road would have been Wolf Creek Road. He said, "The three of us went on a deer hunt that morning. We had a hunter at the top of the hill, and he went up there in the dark before sunrise. At dawn, my uncle and I went up the hill together, parting ways halfway up. There were two other hunters that weren't in our party. They were camped about 200 yards away from us at the base of the mountain, and we didn't know them or their plans. Anyway, halfway up the mountain, my uncle went to the right and I went to the left. The south side of the mountain, which I was on, was open with sagebrush and scattered cypress trees. In the gulches of the face were thick timber groves of mainly large pine trees, clustered only to be separated by the openness I just described. My plan was to stay in the tree groves, working my way to the peak, driving the deer to the top of the hill where the other hunter was positioned. I worked the grove until it ended up forcing me to cross a clearing to the left to enter the grove located under the peak. When I got to the right vertical edge of the tree line to the grove, I found the first blind. It was made of a broken branch that was placed upside down and leaning against another tree. The branch was interwoven into the branches of the larger tree, and at about this time is when I started having a feeling of being watched, and I assumed it was the other two hunters that weren't in our party. And they were camped a couple hundred yards away from us at the base of the mountain. He says, I continued left into the grove and found a 25-foot tree placed upside down next to another tree that was well over 50 feet high. The base was about 18 inches and had been snapped, not sawed. Some branches had interwoven into this tree just like the little blind I first discovered on the grove's edge. I guess the elevation was about 8,500 feet, and as the top of the hill was 10,000, and our camp was at the base about 7,000 feet. I know I had an increasingly strong feeling of being watched again at this point. As I left the second blind, the upside-down tree, working my way up to the left, I saw the silhouette of a bipedal primate, about 8 feet tall, standing very still, just looking at me. It was perpendicular to me. It faced up the hill in almost a runner's stance, and it was looking over its right shoulder at me, slightly, with its wide, muscular torso turned to me. Its brow was extremely pronounced, and its forehead was small, with the back of its head slightly pointed. His head, assuming that it was a male, because it didn't have breasts, was proportionately small in relation to its body. Its arms were extremely long, hairy, and lean, yet very muscular. Its hands had very long palms, and long fingers that curled back with a thumb that curled forward, forming a backward capital C type shape. It then sprinted up the hill and vanished behind the trees, faster than a deer bolts into a dead run from a standstill. It was on the left edge of the grove with a clearing behind it, and this all happened in about 2 seconds. I went to the place that I had seen it, about 60 yards away, and I found no footprints, as the ground had at least a foot of pine needles that cushioned footprints and would spring back up when you walked. I used a tree that was close by to gauge its height. It was of a dark color, but not sure if it was brown or black, as it was shady in the grove with sunlight behind it in the clearing. I was in a state of shock and almost not believing what I saw, but knowing I did and simply just amazed. Because of this, when I got home, later on that week I decided to consult a hypnotist. I had never seen one before, but figured since they help witnesses recall a crime and descriptions of accounts that happen quickly or under stress, it would probably help me confirm what I saw. And the hypnosis did confirm my sighting. Two things to note of interest now was after seeing the Bigfoot was at the top of the grove, just below the top of the hill, there was a deer kill. It had some of the hide and dried flesh still on its bones and was probably killed a few weeks prior. Secondly, that night at camp after dinner, I kind of brought up the subject of the show, Finding Bigfoot, to my hunting party to gauge their opinion on Bigfoot, and none of them believed in Bigfoot. Two of the guys actually made fun of the Squatch hunters. One of the guys let out a howl in a mocking, joking manner, and no more than a minute or two passed when we heard cracking sounds of timber. Then a huge tree by our camp came crashing down. I didn't put two and two together, but after reading up on other sightings in Alpine County, I learned of Sasquatches pushing over trees to intimidate people and scare them away. The deer kill and the tree falling was what I learned about Bigfoot after researching it. Before that day, I never gave Bigfoot much thought, and frankly, I didn't care if it did or didn't exist. Well, now I know that they are here, and it is a creature that needs to be protected and respected. The only way we can do that is to pass laws, and to do that we need to prove that they exist. There were no other witnesses except me as we were deer hunting, and it was the time and conditions. It was about 7:30 in the morning, and it was very clear. The environment, like I said, was open sagebrush, grass on the mountainside, pine groves running in the gulches of the mountain, and occasionally in the open areas. Cypress trees in the open areas as well. Now, a gentleman named Tom Yamarone, a BFRO investigator who spoke with this witness, had the following details to add. He said he estimated the height to be about 8 feet based on the branches of the tree that was next to the subject that he examined after the sighting. He described the color as a dark brown or black, but was not certain because of the lighting conditions in which the subject was backlit. It was tall and lean like an NBA player, but different in some ways. The arm was extremely long, and compared with a human's arm, and the body was not bulky and thick like the Patterson-Gimlin film. The Bigfoot was facing uphill with its right leg bent and poised as someone would be that's getting ready to run a foot race. And the right arm was extended down to the knee, and the hand was evident with the palm facing back and fingers curled to form a semicircle. He noted the palm was not square like ours, but larger by 2 times and a more rectangular shape. They locked eyes, and at that moment the creature bolted up the hill, taking one large step and disappearing into the woods with amazing speed. The whole sighting lasted approximately 2 seconds. The motion he observed was way beyond human capability. The subject took one long, quick step, landing on its left foot, and was gone in a flash. He said it disappeared uphill into the forest in a blur of speed, noting that it covered the distance faster than any human could have. The witness has hunted since he was a young boy, and he's an experienced outdoorsman. And his teacher and wrestling coach from school is a mutual friend of ours who has an interest in Bigfoot. But the witness never really thought about it until that morning. Regarding the subject of Bigfoot, he stated that he was not convinced that they existed, but did not give the subject much thought. He didn't relate the sighting to the rest of his hunting party because he didn't know what they would think. We discussed his actions to seek out a hypnotist in order to recall details of his sighting. Upon returning home, he was in a state of mixed emotions. He is a very good observer of the natural world and noted quite a few details of the subject during this brief sighting. He stated that he was blown away, but what he saw, he was still in denial. I knew exactly what I saw, but I just couldn't believe it. And that's what led me to an appointment with the hypnotist, he said. He goes on to say he found the witness to be very sincere, and it was very detailed in his recounting of the hunting trip and his chance encounter with a Bigfoot that Sunday morning, September 23rd, 2012. That was an awesome encounter story. It had a little bit of everything in it. It was a very detailed description. I noticed it's slightly different than some of the others that you hear as far as the length of hair and the bulkiness of its lower body compared to its upper body. And I like the way he described the arms were just long and strong, and the palms were just twice as the size of human hands, and longer and more rectangular in shape. I never really heard it put quite like that. But I want to thank you all for coming back to the Skookum Report and checking out this encounter story, and I want to invite you all to come back next time. And if you or anyone you know has had a Bigfoot encounter or a sighting, if you want to shoot me an email at skookumreport@gmail.com. That's Skookum Report, all one word, @gmail.com. And I'll be sure to get it up on the channel for you. And I appreciate you, and I want to thank you once again for checking out the Skookum Report. Y'all take care. Bye-bye.